All right, hello there, thrill seekers, and say hi to Ziggy in the back there. Here is, let's see, let's put it here, is a little bit of a video I just put up yesterday for my cover of the song Pink Moon by Nick Drake. I'm doing it this way from now on so that stupid people won't be confused and not realize that they can just skip ahead for 20 seconds and see the Zen video. So there you go, stupid people. Stupid people complain about this a lot, so, there you go. All right, so this kind of, and me calling my audience stupid is kind of part of what this video is about. So 2 days ago, I tweeted the following. Choosing to do Zen stuff for a living was the single worst decision I ever made in my life. Please do not follow my example. This is not sarcasm, I am totally serious. And then I said, people doing Buddhism for a living are destroying Buddhism, including me, of course. So I want to explain what I meant by that, and in order to explain that, I think maybe the best way is to tell you how I got into the position where I am doing Buddhism for a living, or doing stuff related to Buddhism for a living, because I always consider what I do on this video channel and what I do when I write books to be a form of entertainment. It's a form of entertainment that's based on Buddhism, but I do not consider what I'm doing now, to be professional Buddhist teaching. But still, let's just get into what I meant to say, because I'm getting sidetracked. So, in 2002, I was working at Tsuburaya Productions, where I'd been working since 1994, I think. I think it was 1994 when I first joined the company. And Akira Tsuburaya came back into the fold, and this is gonna be, I'm gonna be leaving out so many details, and if people want to know the details, you can write to me and ask me, but you probably don't need to know. Akira Tsuburaya was the third and the youngest son of Eiji Tsuburaya, the founder of the company, but he had left Tsuburaya Productions years before to start his own company called Tsuburaya Eizo, which would translate to something like Tsuburaya Films. And it's very confusing that there was a company called Tsuburaya Productions and a company called Tsuburaya Eizo, because until I joined Tsuburaya Productions, I always thought Tsuburaya Eizo was a subsidiary or a related company, somehow another branch of Tsuburaya Productions. But it wasn't. It was completely unrelated. I mean, the people, the Tsuburaya family was related, but the companies as companies were not related. Okay, so Akira comes back. And one of the things that Akira had done with Tsuburaya Eizo is he established a Los Angeles office for Tsuburaya Eizo, and it was in an actual office in Century City in Los Angeles. And when Akira came back to Tsuburaya Productions, now this office in Los Angeles became available to Tsuburaya Productions. And Tsuburaya Productions had been for a long time very keen on marketing Ultraman, which was our big show, superhero show, to the United States. So, a decision was made to send me out there to be the guy at the Los Angeles office, because I was the American who worked for the company. I'd been working there for close to 10 years already, so I was a trusted person at the company. And so, at the end of 2004... at the end of 2004 is when I was actually sent out there to be the Los Angeles office guy. Now, the problem was that we were having this huge legal issue with the rights, the international rights to Ultraman, and this is a very complicated story that maybe I should write a book about, and I actually might be on the verge of writing that book. We'll see. We'll see if Tsuburaya Productions is comfortable with me writing about it. That's one of the problems. But anyway, what happened is this guy in Thailand had this obviously, just so obviously fake contract that with a fake signature of Noboru Tsuburaya, who was at the time he was dead when this Thai guy showed up. He showed up like a month after Noboru died, with this fake contract that he said Noboru had given him in 1974 that he had done nothing with. since 1974. I think 74 or 76, sometime in the 70s. And he'd done nothing with it for 20 years. He had all of the international rights to Ultraman and had done nothing with them. Isn't that amazing? And now that Noboru was dead, he was claiming his rights. And this started off a very complicated legal case that tied up the international rights to Ultraman for a long time. They finally got fixed a few years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago. Anyway, so I was out there in the Los Angeles office, supposedly marketing Ultraman, and I had interest. I had meetings with Paramount Pictures, a bunch of meetings with Warner Brothers, meetings with another independent producer who was very well connected and definitely had the means to get this big budget Ultraman movie in America going, but all of it came to nothing. And it was very frustrating. And so what ended up happening is that for most of the next 4 years, I was literally doing nothing. My job was to sit in this office in Century City 5 days a week and do nothing. So what I ended up doing instead of doing nothing was working on more books. I accepted a lot of speaking engagements that I went to all over the country, leading retreats and things. I also was writing for the Suicide Girls website, which was very controversial at the time, and everybody's forgotten that I ever even did that. But for a number of years, like 5 years or something, I wrote a regular column in the Suicide Girls website. And if you don't know, Suicide Girls is kind of softcore cheesecake. I wouldn't call it the P word, but it was, it was like that. But I was writing about Buddhism on there and making a little money at that. The only thing I really got paid for was the Suicide Girls writings. It wasn't enough to make a living off of, but the retreats and things, basically, it was at my own expense doing these things. So I was doing that. End of 2008. Tsuburaya Productions calls me and says they want me to come to Tokyo for a meeting. Now, this was not in itself unusual because at that time I was going back and forth 2 or 3, sometimes 4 times a year. I would go to Tokyo and have meetings with the company and basically tell them I wasn't doing anything and why is this happening and et cetera, et cetera. And then they'd send me back to Los Angeles and I'd continue doing nothing. So this time I went, and the company had a new president, and he wanted me to come back to Tokyo and work for a totally revamped version of the international division of Tsuburaya Productions, and I would be getting a significant pay raise, so I would be making some serious money, and I would be in charge of the international efforts to market Ultraman all over the world, particularly in America. Which is that's the whole reason I joined the company. I joined the company in the hopes of one day getting in a position where I would be in charge of marketing or not marketing so much but just making some kind of an adaptation. That was the thing I really wanted, was to work on an American adaptation of Ultraman, which I had as a writer, as a guy who was trying to become a science fiction writer for a lot of my life. I had a lot of ideas and a very strong concept of what this movie would be. And so I was offered all of that. They brought me to Tokyo and said, here, we're going to have you do your dream job and make a whole bunch of money and live in Tokyo, which is a city that I loved and I missed and I kind of wanted to move back to because I wasn't a big fan of Los Angeles. And so, there was that offer. And I turned them down. Like, if you had told my 12-year-old self that I would be offered such a thing in my early 40s and then turn it down, I'd be like, no way. There's no way I would ever turn something like that down. I mean, my God, that's my dream. But I turned it down. I turned it down because I was feeling this pull, like I should do something with this. Nishijima Roshi had made me the head of his organization. Maybe we'll get into that in a minute, why I'm putting it in scare quotes. Organization Dogen Sangha International. And I felt like I should dedicate my life to doing this. Now, let's rewind a little bit. And Nishijima Roshi had told me on more than one occasion, and he made this even a public part of his public talks, that nobody should ever do Zen for a living. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't do it full time or you shouldn't be dedicated to it, but you shouldn't make it your source of income. That was his point. And I think when I made that tweet that I talked about at the beginning of this video, I probably wasn't as, I don't know, a lot of people seem to be confused, that they thought I shouldn't be teaching Zen at all or writing books, and I was regretting writing books about Zen or regretting doing these videos or whatever. No, what I'm regretting is the fact that I chose to do this for a living. I gave up a chance to do something else for a living and do the Zen stuff on the side, which I could, I'd written 2 books already while working at Tsuburaya Productions, and gave talks and things while working at Tsuburaya Productions. So there was no barrier to this. In fact, when I had that meeting in Tokyo, I talked to them about this, and they said, "Oh yeah, you can keep writing your books, and you can keep doing, as long as it doesn't conflict with other things the company's doing, you can go out and do lectures and lead retreats and things." They were okay with that. So it was like this was like perfect. But I turned it down because I just felt like I should dedicate myself to this. And what I ended up doing was I cut myself off. I was then in my early 40s, as I mentioned, and I'd had several years of experience in the film business. So at the time that I did this, I perceived or thought that I had the option of sort of taking it back and just doing, taking a job, either trying to get that job at Tsuburaya Productions back, or failing that, get a job at some other place. There's a lot of places I could have worked in Hollywood with the experience I had in being able to speak Japanese and being familiar with that and blah, blah, blah. So I had options open to me, and I decided I would try this out for a year and see if I was able to make a living at it, which I wasn't. I was living off of my savings. Tsuburaya Productions paid me well for the first few years that I worked in Los Angeles and when I worked in Tokyo, and I built up a nest egg, or whatever you call it, of savings. So I knew I could live for a while on just that. So that's what I did. And now it's been 15 years. Let's just cut the middle part because it's boring. And anyway, a lot of you already know it. And it's been 15 years. And now I'm 60. And I've got no prospects for another job. Like, there's nothing. There's no. Maybe I could work as a greeter at Walmart, which I'm not denigrating that job. I think it's a perfect. Somebody when I mentioned this before, I know that at least one of my viewers is a greeter at Walmart. So to you and anybody else, I'm not denigrating that job. I think it looks actually kind of like a nice job, but that's about all I'd be qualified for. I couldn't work in the film business anymore. I couldn't. Nobody'd hire me for an office job because I'm too old, and, et cetera, et cetera. There's nothing. So now I'm stuck. Now I'm stuck doing this. And what this means is, so I'm finally getting to the point after 13 minutes. What this means is that, well, okay, I'm personally pretty lucky because I'm able to do this independently. Like, I'm not part of any organization. I chose not to do anything with my so-called position as the head of Dogen Sangha International because I don't have any interest in forming an organization. See, what one would normally do if one was in my position, what a lot of people have done who've been in similar positions to me, is somebody who's received some kind of an ordination and written books and has some kind of a name around them, like I do, would be to start an organization, to start to that's, I think, what a lot of people expected me to do. I think this is what my publishers initially expected me to do, because that's a way to sell a lot of books. Because you start an organization and all the members of the organization buy the books, and you kind of get this little cult following, and so forth and so on. But I never did that because I don't have any interest in doing that. And the reason I don't have any interest in doing that is because I can see what happens to people when they do that. And I can see why Nishijima Roshi said, don't do Buddhism for a living. Because if you do Buddhism for a living, if you become, for example, a professional Buddhist teacher, and you have an organization and you have a center, what happens is you have to get butts in seats, as they say in Hollywood, or butts on cushions. You got to get people to come, and you got to get people to donate. And in order to get people to show up and to donate, you got to give them a reason. You got to give them some candy. You got to make it interesting to them. Got to get them to come in, and so what you end up with is you'll probably have a small number of people who are sincere, who really do the practice for the sake of the practice itself, who understand what it means when what's his name, Kodo Sawaki says Zen is good for nothing. Who don't use it as a means to an end, who are sincere. You get certain amount of those people, but that won't be enough to keep a center going, because that's just the way it goes. Maybe there was a time in the past where economics and things like that were different and you could do that, but now in the West, in the United States in particular, probably in Europe too, maybe even Japan too at this point, you just can't make it work that way. And this doesn't, okay, there's a lot of people who get greedy with this thing, and they're really, really working hard to attract people, and they compromise the teachings, and they offer things that have nothing to do with the teachings, and they change whatever they need to change to get the people in, to get that sort of unwashed masses. I don't know what I want to say. These people who just, they're only casually interested. The bands work the same way, but let's stay off that topic. But, you get the sort of casual people in there who are just in there for the spectacle. Like the people who go to Taylor Swift, you got this core of fans who are on the what do they call that? The floor right in front of her, who are the real Taylor Swift fans. And then you've got just a bunch of other people who are there because, this is the thing to do. So you got to get all those people there who just, it's the thing to do. And in order to do that, you got to make it the thing to do. You also, when I was hanging around Tassajara and San Francisco Zen Center, and also some other centers, but mainly them is where I saw this. I saw how they were very much beholden to rich people. Rich people who had some interest in Zen, but, most of them, I met some of these people, their interest in Zen wasn't that deep. They just had money. And so you're having to play up to these rich people. I think this is one of the reasons that politics gets so involved in Buddhism, because you gotta play up to the politics of these people. And these rich Bay Area people are very, they love the Democratic Party, and you got to be like, oh yeah, we're for the Democrats too. Yeah, we hate that guy. Oh, sorry, Ziggy. Somebody said I'm trying to be cute when I point out that Ziggy is peeing behind me. I'm not trying to be cute. I'm trying to get the video done and not have it be an all-day project, because I got other things I have to do today. So sorry. Anyway, there's Ziggy peeing, and I don't think it's particularly cute. Well, that wiggle was cute, but the peeing itself was not that cute. So you gotta play up to these rich people, and you gotta do what the rich people want, and you end up compromising a lot. And I don't, when I ran this little center in Los Angeles and tried to make it as small as possible, tried to discourage growth, it just turned on just to keep the lights on and keep the rent being paid. There were certain things I wasn't allowed to say. And there were certain things that because I would scare off the donors, and that's a problem. Then there's the other faction, which I have written a letter to my friend Shozan Jack Haubner, who runs a YouTube channel called Zen Confidential. So everybody should subscribe to Zen Confidential and watch Zen Confidential. And he said he would watch my video and then also talk about make his comments about Ziggy. Anyway, his comments about the subject I'm about to bring up, which is the professional monk. So this is a person who's not a teacher of Buddhism, but goes to the monastery and just makes his or her living as a monk. Now, see, the thing is, in Zen, the idea of monasticism it's not supposed to be a lifetime thing. I think in Catholicism it is. I'm not sure. Maybe a Catholic can enlighten me on that subject. But in Zen, what you're supposed to do is do your monastic training for a certain amount of time and then get out, either to do something totally different or to run your own temple maybe, but just get out. You're not supposed to stay there. What ends up happening, though, is you get people living there, and a lot of people who are living at these monastic situations, I mean, they've got some kind of commitment to practice, but often it becomes a kind of way to just hide from the world and to just just do this thing where you're getting your 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day, depending on what kind of a monastery you're in, because some of them don't do dinner, and leave that for later. Anyway, you're doing that. You got your three squares or 2 squares a day. It's sort of like being in prison, And there's a certain thing, like being in prison. Actually, sometimes I think, that might be kind of nice. I mean, except for the fact that prisons are hellish places. But everything's provided for you, so you don't have to work anymore. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to produce. Maybe make license plates or whatever. But so it's like choosing to be in prison, in a kind of nice prison, because you don't have any, you don't have to do anything. So you get that kind of thing happening, and that's no good. And I know people think about doing this, because I thought about doing this. When I first started to study and practice Zen, I thought, maybe I should become a monk, and just do that. Just go off and live in a monastery for the rest of my life, and I don't have to get a real job. That'd be great. I had that thought, and I know people who write to me will never say that in so many words, but I can tell from what they write to me that often there are people who are thinking that, like that's why they want to become a monk, because they'll just be taken care of, and they'll live in the monastery, and it'll be groovy. Yeah. So the problem is doing it for a living. When you start doing it for a living, that's where the trouble begins. A better way to do it is if you can do it like Nishijima Roshi did. He made his living as an employee of the Ida soap and cosmetics company, and he didn't have to worry. He didn't have to compromise anything. He paid, when we would do retreats, he paid the same fee as everybody else for the retreat. And then when I took over his retreats, and I was still working at Tsuburaya Productions, that's what I did too. I had some dipwad who was dissatisfied with one of the retreats I ran in Japan in the early days say, I paid you, I don't remember the retreat fee, Sanman Gosen yen or something like that, for like $300, I guess, to do this retreat. And I said, you didn't pay me anything. I paid the same Sanman Gosen yen for the retreat as you did. So there. And it was great to be able to say that, because then I've nixed any complaint you can make, because I'm paying for it too. These days I don't, because I can't afford to, and I take a fee when I run a retreat. But I'm independent of the places that pay me to do retreats. So and I'm kind of free to do what I want. And so far nobody's told me, as the Zen Center that I ran in Los Angeles told me, that I shouldn't say or do certain things because it would scare people off. So I'm happy with the situations I've got at these places where I do retreats and get paid for them. But I'm lucky. So the reason I put that tweet out is I know there's people who think about doing Buddhism for a living, and I want to discourage that. Don't do Buddhism for a living. Just don't, because you can't keep it pure if you do it for a living. And so, yeah, there's my message, and I guess that's all I really needed to say. And shows on Jack Haubner, I'll say it again, on Zen Confidential. We'll probably do a video in response to this, so go look at Zen Confidential, and maybe once it comes up, I'll mention it again. And we'll see what he has to say about people who become professional monks. I make my living, I consider myself to make my living as a writer and as a YouTube guy, and not as a monk and not as a Buddhist teacher. And that is the best way that I've been able to do that. But I really wish sometimes that I hadn't turned down that job at Tsuburaya Productions. Now, we in Buddhism say don't speak of past mistakes, don't dwell on past mistakes. So I try not to dwell on my past mistake of doing that, but you do it anyway. And then here's my little meditation advice. When you have that kind of regret come up, try to just let it go, or make a video about it, which I did, and so that's one thing you can do too. All right, so if you want to donate to me, the way I make my living mostly is through donations that people send to hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. You don't actually send the donations there, but that will lead you to where you can make donations through PayPal or through Patreon. And I really appreciate your support, because I didn't take that job at Tsuburaya Productions, so it means a lot to me. But as I always say, you don't have to support me if you don't want to. And about the fact that I want to circle back to the thing about calling people stupid. That's one of the reasons. You know, I kind of feel like I'm terrible at running this social media stuff, or whatever you call doing a YouTube channel, because I don't really care if I scare off viewers. It doesn't matter to me. And the only way I can do this and continue to do this is to continuously not care about that. So sometimes I comment back to people who are writing BS comments, and I try in those comments to, my hope in some of the comments back I give to people is I hope that they'll say, oh, screw this guy, I don't want to watch his videos anymore. And that, to me, seems like a good thing. I talked to my nephew, who's a social media dude, and he would say that's a bad thing to do. And it probably is, because it scares off donors. But there you go. If I didn't feel free to scare off donors, I wouldn't be able to do the job that I do. Okay, that's sort of my point. All right, we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Hey, Ziggy. I'm going to put you in a cameo, but you were in the whole video, weren't you? What are you looking at? Oh, that was just a leaf falling. Hey, Zig, look at the people. Look at the people. I'm trying to get you to do a good cameo. Hey, Ziggy, look. Okay. All right, let's go inside and edit the video. Okay, bye.